Now, two polls today show the Albanese government could be the first since 1931 to lose an election after just one term. And Donald Trump could give it that final push over the cliff. Newspoll today again had Labor behind the coalition, 49% of 51 after preferences. But most ominous for Prime Minister Albanese is that the coalition primary vote is above 40% for the very first time since the election. And what's more, Albanese's popularity keeps sinking like a stone. Now, the Resolve poll says much the same. Labor's primary vote down to a shocking 30% now, the coalition's 39%. And here's where Trump comes in as the man who could even finish off Albanese's shambolic government. I don't just mean what everyone's been talking about. Yes, it's true that Donald Trump did have an astonishing landslide win in last week's American election by hammering exactly the two big issues that are hurting Albanese as well. One, obviously, inflation under President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, the cost of living. That's been really tough on the working class over there, and Trump just kept asking the same deadly question.
Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? I've asked that question so many times. I've never had one hand go up.
And Trump also hammered the left's obsession, meanwhile, with identity politics, that distraction, that divisive culture wars, in ads like this.
Kamala even supports letting biological men compete against our girls in their sports. Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
So you can see how that is exactly the template now for opposition leader Peter Dutton. Cost of living, well, in fact, is already hurting the government on exactly that, because Australians have been getting poorer per family under Anthony Albanese, who's meanwhile been off crusading for the racist voice to Parliament or whatever woke issue occurs to him, identity politics especially. So really, I don't know that Dutton needed a bit of a lesson from Trump, but you see, more grist to his mill. Albanese is in fact threatened by more than that. Trump could hurt him directly. For one, Trump hates global warming scaremongers, like Albanese.
One of the most urgent tasks, not only for our movement, but for our country, is to decisively defeat the climate hysteria hoax. The radical left's fear-mongering about climate and our future is no longer just scaring American youth. It's destroying America's economy, weakening our society, and eviscerating our middle class.
Trump promises to boost oil and gas exploration. Most dangerously for Albanese, though, he will pull America out of the Paris Agreement to cut emissions. And Albanese seemed, caught on the hop on this last Thursday and was in denial still of what this would mean for him at next week's meeting in Brazil of the G20 economies.
I'm convinced that the G20, like other international forums I've been in, will overwhelmingly be focused on climate action, because the whole world is moving in this direction.
Well, that's now complete nonsense, because not even half the world by emissions will be moving in this direction once Trump is sworn in as president. At the G20 meeting will be China, the world's biggest emitter by far of greenhouse gases, and India, which is the third. Both are actually free under the Paris Agreement to vastly increase their emissions, and boy, have they done exactly that. You add then America under Trump, and you then already have the three countries responsible for more than half the world's emissions saying they are not obliged to cut them under this Paris Agreement. Yet there's Albanese still trying to make little old Australia set a useless example to nobody who cares by spending billions of dollars on green schemes that are just making electricity too expensive for business, let alone for the poor. Now already there are Nationals politicians like former Resources Minister Matt Canavan saying Australia should now pull out of the Paris deal, or at least delay our own targets. And the problem for Albanese is that if it comes to arguing about this now, he's got no clue about the climate science he claims justifies his unpopular global warming policies.
There were more floods and more bushfires and more cyclones.
That's more nonsense. I mean, for a start, our Bureau of Meteorology shows we're actually getting fewer cyclones, not more. Albanese just made that up. And we haven't had a bad fire season for nearly 5 years. The more Albanese actually talks about climate science, the more voters will see that if you want to worry about hot air, look at him. But here's the other big battle that Trump is forcing on Albanese: free speech. Now, Trump had his family pose for a celebratory picture on election night that also included Elon Musk, who's there on the right. That's how close they all are now. And that's not just because that Musk, who's the world's richest man, campaigned for Trump. Trump is also a free speech warrior who completely backs Musk's fight against governments that try to censor misinformation, so-called, on social media platform X, formerly Twitter, which Elon Musk owns.
If we don't have free speech, then we just don't have a free country. It's as simple as that. We need to break up the entire toxic censorship industry that has arisen under the false guise of tackling so-called mis- and disinformation.
And Trump's pick as Vice President, J.D. Vance, very bright guy, went further, declared that America's allies, which include us, couldn't be fighting free speech or threatening Musk if they wanted America's help.
It's insane that we would support a military alliance if that military alliance isn't going to be pro-free speech.
Now that's a disaster for Anthony Albanese, who's been trying to get Parliament to pass his new misinformation bill, which could see social media companies fined up to 5% of their annual turnover globally for not stopping what a government-appointed body claims are falsehoods, misinformation. I know it's an appalling attack on free speech. Many Australians are really against it. But now Elon Musk has called Albanese and his government left-wing fascists for trying to censor X, and he can count on the new president of the United States to help him fight Anthony Albanese. Albanese is now in a war with Trump I doubt he can win. And it's a war that these polls show he can't afford.